So a number of things occurred over the years, but contrary to what history may write, the top thing on my to-do list was not Gateway. It was rebuilding the neighborhoods, and it was bringing some sanity to the Cleveland Public Schools. You can't have viable neighborhoods that are shrinking right before your very eyes. You can't have viable neighborhoods where people are leaving in droves. You can't have viable neighborhoods that become bastions of places for just the people who can't get out. And you can't have neighborhoods that are viable for all ages with housing that's 100 years old or 50 years old or all wooden. We have to, if we're going to compete with the rest of the region, we have to have a competitive neighborhood. We have to have neighborhoods where people are making a choice. They're saying, I want to live here. And you can't guilt them into that. You can't bribe them into it by saying, we'll give you $100 off your taxes if you just live in a Cleveland neighborhood. You have to create options that make them of their own free will to say, I want to live in Fremont. I want to live in Glenville. I want to live in Collinwood. And there's a lot of parts of that. You know, the first part's an intangible. I got to make sure you feel safe. And part of being safe is having not just a well-trained police department, but maximizing visibility for your police. So one of the very first things I did that kind of got me a dartboard in the police union headquarters was found 235 officers sitting behind desks, and we put them back in the streets. We raised our complement of officers by 25%, I think it was, on the street. We had to do everything we could to really rehab and improve the housing that was there, and we had to build new housing. You know, when I ran for mayor, I would go around and I'd talk to people about how we're going to build new housing. You know, everybody said, well, you know, he's a politician, he's running, he's lying. He doesn't really believe that. The second meeting I had as a new mayor, Chris Warren and Ken Silliman I asked them to bring down a map of Cleveland. And I wanted them to circle every large landmass the city of Cleveland owned. They bring the map down, we look at it. I said, this is where we're going to start. I said, we're going to start selling these lots for $1. And once we got our thing kind of organized, we basically began to pitch it to developers. And after a time, we finally found one or two who were, I think, as crazy as we were. And we just slathered incentives on them to induce them to build this housing. But we had one demand. The demand was, you are not going to build inner city housing. The demand was, you're going to build a house that is going to look and be both internally and externally one that we could take a big scoop, lift it out, carry it to North Olmsted, dig a hole, put it in North Olmsted, and somebody's going to buy it. If it doesn't meet that test, we don't want you to build in Cleveland. Because if we're going to be competitive, we've got to be competitive. No one in North Olmsted is going to buy, quote, urban housing. So we got some takers and we started building. And lo and behold, people were buying them. Mike, when we first started trying to do this, I mean, I was literally begging developers. I mean, what will it take for us to get you to build? I mean, I probably shouldn't say it this way because of what's been going on in the county, but I mean, they always talk about politicians taking bribes, and we were literally trying to bribe the developers to go build. Whatever you want, we will give it to you so you will go build. So the first year, you know, they're giving me kind of perfunctory response. Oh yeah, we want to be a helpful mayor. We want to be good citizens. A couple people take a flyer, but no real. I mean, their hearts weren't. It wasn't like, wow, we're glad to be on Chester. A year later, I was being mobbed. I would go to these, you know, social things that mayors have to go to, and I mean, these developers would literally be chasing me at these, mayor, you know, those land plots you've been doing on Chester, do you have any more? And it really became, to make a long story short, 33 subdivisions all sold out. Very important to creating a springboard to where the neighborhoods had to go. And don't get me wrong, we have a long way to go, but it proved once and for all that if we build it right, if we do it right, create competitive, structural, and visual places for people to be, and we pick the right places. For instance, we try to always pick on the edges of ongoing development, like Cleveland Clinic, that people will come, they will stay, and it will be various income levels. Which then took me to my first meeting as mayor. First meeting I ever had with mayor was about education. I had a committee, and I said to them that I want to fix the Cleveland Public Schools. I actually spent, the better part of my first term trying to get the board to stop playing politics with the lives of children. Which it was kind of like trying to get Santa Claus to renounce Christmas. It was really a painful, unsuccessful failure. And I became absolutely convinced that as long as they're elected, they're going to play politics with these kids' lives. Then the governor, I think it was toward the end of the first term, he, quote, took over the schools from Columbus. I remember him calling me, and I have a lot of respect for George. I remember him calling me saying that he was going to do it and he wanted me to support it. I said, well, first of all, I'm not going to oppose it. Not that it would be successful if I did. I said, but you be careful because this could be your Vietnam. And those are the words I used. He says, what do you mean? I said, you cannot fix the Cleveland Public Schools from 150 miles away. Your director of education cannot fix the Cleveland Public Schools from 150 miles away. The problems are too deep, too systemic, and too big. He said, thank you, took him over. And in a year and a half, both he and the Republican legislature were trying to figure out who they could dump it on. And along comes Michael White. The conventional wisdom about the takeover of the Cleveland Public Schools is that I actually sought them being turned over to me, that there was some kind of secret meetings I was having with the Republicans, and we were hatching this big, takeover in secret. But in reality, it couldn't be farther from the truth. My wife and I are in Florida on vacation, and I get a call from the staff. And the staff says, well, they got a call from some Republican I didn't even know who said he was drafting a bill to turn the Cleveland Public Schools over to me, or over to the mayor of Cleveland. And he wanted to know, would I support it? I said, well, first of all, I'm on vacation. Second of all, I can't support something I haven't seen. Third of all, I don't dismiss it out of hand. I said, when I get back, we can talk. So to make a long story short, I said under certain conditions, I would do it. And basically, they met all of our conditions. But here's the point. Here's the most important point to me. Not one person in my circle supported it. No one in my family. No one in my staff, either executive or otherwise. None of my political advisors. And none of my outside relationships thought I ought to do it. And they all felt, quite frankly, that it would be my Vietnam. I had one final person to talk to. By the way, you ought to tape him. He's a fountain of history, and that's Arnold Pinckney. He's really somebody you ought to tape. He's the glue that kept all of us together. So I asked Arnold, would he have lunch with me? Every now and then we would have lunch, and we would go to Lancers. So I got to Lancers, and then Arnold came in, and we ordered, and I said, Arnold was president of the school board, and he really took a lot of knocks, but he really tried to depoliticize the school board. So I said, I'm probably going to support this bill to allow the mayor to take over the schools. He says, oh, you shouldn't do that. he said, and Arnold, all you do is say kid around Arnold. He would do. I met Arnold when I was 14 years old. I was a small group of high school students who were allowed into the living room of Betty and Arnold Pinckney as an example of a very successful, in those days, Negro businessman. And it wasn't until I was mayor that I ever put the two together. It never dawned on me he was Arnold Pinckney. But he said, oh, you shouldn't do that. He says, you're going to get killed. You're going to get, you're going to lose in office. You'll never be able to make a change. It's going to make you look, he just went on and on and on. And by the way, the potential, he was exactly right. And I told him, I said, Arnold, look, half of the reason why I'm sitting here with you as the mayor of Cleveland is owed to the Cleveland Public Schools. I said, there's just no way I would have ever been mayor of anything without the Cleveland Public Schools, without teachers like Mrs. Payne and Mrs. Clark and principals like Ms. Tingling and a couple of others whose names escape me right now, who never allowed me to doubt that I could be whatever I wanted to be. They worked me hard, and their punishments were swift. In those days, Michael, they still had paddles. But even if you were getting paddled, you knew you were loved. And they made you feel, now I'm talking about Stephanie Tubbs Jones and Leon Bibb and Carl Stokes and Lou Stokes and others, George Voinovich, Collinwood. They made you feel that with hard work and honesty, you could achieve any goal. And I said, what does it say about me at this moment, at this point in my life, with this much power, if I cut and run? I said, how do I repay what I've been given by disappearing, by going the opposite direction? I said, you may be absolutely right about everything. I said, but I don't have a choice. I said, because nobody cut and ran on me. And that is really the reason. And, people may have thought, oh, all that money, all that power, 2 systems. I came out of the system. And I can tell you without fear of contradiction, this may be going a little bit beyond where you want to go, but there are a heck of a lot of kids in that system, a heck of a lot smarter than me. They could be a lot more than I ever was, and they deserve a chance. They deserve people who believe in them. They deserve people who will help them believe in themselves and prepare them to be in the society. And that's what that was all about. And I cannot tell you, the Cleveland Public Schools weren't going to be fixed totally on my watch. We began a process that Mayor Jackson is continuing, and he's building upon, and he's doing it better than we did. But what he's doing now, we could not have done 10 years ago. And my guess is that in 10 years, the next mayor is going to be doing things which Mayor Jackson nor I could have done. But this is going to be an evolutionary thing. And it's going to boil down to creating a system that is organized for and behalf of children, not adults, which is the main reason we've had these problems.
The airport may not be as sexy as the schools or the Cleveland Indians, but it matters, and there were significant things that happened under your administration with regard to the airport.
Well, I think the airport's more important than the Cleveland Indians and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I know that's heresy, and you all may cut that part out. But, I'm the son of a factory worker. I'm the son of a copper and brass maker. I know factories. My uncles worked at TRW. I grew up in a neighborhood of factory workers, Americans, people from Cleveland who made things. And while I never worked in a factory, I became acutely aware that airports can take us to the rest of the world. And for me I wanted to be firstest with the mostest on behalf of the people who lived here and on behalf of the people who made things. I don't care whether you were an accounting consultant, or you were selling widgets, or you were selling circuits. I wanted us to be able to get to the rest of the world, because my feeling was if we got there, we could compete. Clevelanders are great competitors. I mean, we don't leave anything on the battlefield. We work hard. We are problem solvers. We are honest. And we can go anywhere in the rest of the world with a great product and, given the opportunity, be successful. But if we can't get you there because we don't have an airport that can get you there, then we're going to be perennially backbenchers. So at the core of the airport expansion was that philosophy. It was an economic, it was, as much as people think, well, this will help me get to a vacation in the Bahamas. It had nothing to do with the Bahamas because they're only going to buy so many widgets. I wanted us to get to Asia. I wanted us to have direct flights, more direct flights to Europe. I wanted to get our money makers into those places as quickly as possible so they could compete. And that was at the core of what we were trying to do. And the expansion was unprecedented in terms of size and what we were trying to build. Now, I must tell you, we had a great partner. Continental, you couldn't ask for a better partner than Continental now, United. But when it was Continental, its leadership, in my opinion, was the very best that corporate America can deliver. When you have a president of a company that not only operates an airline but flies planes and knows what it means to be a customer on a plane and is customer oriented and sensitive to cities, you've got a great partner. You know, he's a guy that I had all kinds of meetings, so I never left scratching my head wondering whether he was telling me the truth. So Cleveland was well situated. We made a lot of things. We make a lot of things still today. We had a great infrastructure for an airport, but it had to be updated. So we spent a lot of time, trying to do that. And I must just tell you as an aside, unfortunately, the media got sidetracked on the Mike White, Tom Coyne battle.
Who's Tom Coyne?
Tom Coyne's the mayor of Brook Park, where we butt up against Brook Park, and we were trying to buy some land in Brook Park and the IX Center and so forth. I remember once we were in the thick of things with Mayor Coyne. I mean, he's doing his thing. I remember being in a meeting, and a staff member started grousing fairly energetically about Tom Coyne, about Mayor Coyne of Brook Park, and kind of, would he just please cease and desist? And he said a few, let's say, disrespectful things. I said, wait a minute. I said, let me tell you something. If I were the mayor of Brook Park and Tom Coyne was the mayor of Cleveland, and if Tom Coyne was doing what I'm doing, I'd be doing exactly what he's doing. I said, I understand why he's doing it. I respect that. If he did nothing, I'd have no respect for him. He's fighting for his town and his people. And I said, and by the way, I mean, you haven't seen a fight. If he really wanted to screw us, he could have done it a long time ago. So the so-called fight with Tom Coyne was probably one of the most gentlemanly fights that political battles I've ever had, because it was a battle with somebody that I greatly respected and whose motives were completely transparent, and I understood the motives. And at the end of the day, I think we achieved a win-win for everybody. Brook Park wasn't decimated. The airport got to expand. Our thing makers, people who made things, got a chance to have the opportunity to get to the rest of the world. And those are important for our economy. And one of the most difficult things in office is to think about tomorrow, because there's so much going on today in real time that it's hard to make decisions about impact 10 years from now. And frankly, very few people care. But the airport development is a multi-decade venture. And if anybody ever questions the wisdom of it, all they have to do is look at the Atlanta airport, started in a pasture with a cow. And the economic impact there.